you're going to do it, the audit should be worth it. The problem is, audits are hard. Yet we've issued over 20,000 reports to 2,000 clients worldwide.
So it's like this cat and mouse game that we're always playing. You know, the blue team is going to do one thing, and then the red team is going to do something else. So that's kind of the back and forth, the cat and mouse game that we play.
Cybersecurity and compliance will no longer be a mystery. Well, hey everyone, and welcome into our cybersecurity mission. My name is Allie Krings. I'll be your host for this episode, and today we're sitting down with Brian Lowe. He's a senior pen tester here at Kirkpatrick Price. Brian, thank you so much for joining us.
No, appreciate you having me.
You know, Brian, it's going to be a great conversation all about cross-site scripting during this probably next 20-25 minutes or so, but let's get a little bit about your background before we get into it. Right now you're at KP, but where did you start?
So I retired from the Air Force after 23 years, and
thank you for your service.
I appreciate it. And I wanted to do a job that I did, I had fun with when I was a kid.
Okay.
Right. So as that adolescent, I remember just writing code and having fun on my Commodore 64 way back in the day. And I never could translate that to a job while I was in the military. So I got my degree while I was in the military in cybersecurity, and then transitioned over with an internship with a small company in San Antonio.
While you were in the military, you were still working with security.
I was still doing security, yeah. I was a dog handler for the majority of my career, military working dog handler for the majority of my career. So I was doing a lot of physical security, private security for individuals, and of course security for the base. So I've always been security minded within a career that I've had.
Yeah, and I love how you kind of transitioned that into cybersecurity. You went through this internship, and there in that internship, you were exposed to so many different kind of sections of a company. What led you to pen testing?
The interaction of the team together, right? So they were always talking, they were working together, right? Whereas some of the other groups were kind of just off doing their own thing, kind of being segregated. The team that I initially worked with, they were helping each other out, showing each other new things, and that's kind of what led me and drew me to wanting to do that as well.
Yeah.
So,
it's really fun for me because when we all get to come together as a group here at Kirkpatrick Price, right away when we walked in the door, you were sitting there with 3 other pen testers, and everyone's chit-chatting, having a good time. Somebody's, working on code. You guys are all riling each other up. Yeah. It seems like it's a really great collaborative environment.
100%. That's what makes it fun, right? Like if we don't want to have the days of the early day hacker where he's just sitting in his hoodie, in his mom's or grandma's basement or mom's basement, right? And now it's more of a collaborative effort, and we want to, hey, if I've got something cool, or if I can show you this, or this is a new technique, then that's kind of what we want to do.
So what is like the hacker dress code these days?
Oh, we still wear our hoodie.
Okay, smart. Well, let's dive into cross-site scripting.
Sure.
My first question is, what is it?
On the easy level, cross-site scripting is basically taking a input field on a web application and making it do something that the developer didn't necessarily want it to do, right? So we're going to inject some type of JavaScript code into that field, and basically make it, produce JavaScript. Whereas, the input field for you may be like your name. Hey, what's your name? Welcome to the website. Put your name in here. We're going to say, all right, you give me a name field, and I am going to put special characters in there and try to make this input field produce JavaScript or run JavaScript.
So is that why, sometimes they'll only allow you to use maybe 14 characters to write your entire first name?
Yeah, correct. That's one of the mitigation techniques is, if we have a name field, there's no reason to have allow 200 characters for somebody's first name, right? So we want them to only put, 15, 20 characters. That's really going to stop the amount of payloads that I can test, or a type of payload that I can put in there. So
as a pen tester, though, what kind of relationship do you have to cross-site scripting?
I mean, it's a type of injection, so we're testing for it on every test that we do. So you should be testing for it because it's prevalent and it's out there. So we want to make sure developers of the website know that it's there, and we're going to continue to test for it. So.
And how do you start going about that? I mean, are there red flags that somebody's seeing and they're reaching out saying, hey, we might have a problem here? How does that happen?
So for me, a lot of the times what I look for is there a way that I can change the website, right? So when I put my name in there, is it telling me, hey, welcome to the website, Brian? So I know that the website is taking some particular information that me as a user, it has inputted into the website,
Yeah.
right? And then it's saying, hey, welcome to the website, Brian. So I know that initial site, Brian, is being pulled from somewhere, right? So there is an indication that I can change what the website is trying to do. So that's a red flag to me to say, hey, I have, as a user, I have some control over what this website's asking for.
Interesting. And when it comes to cross-site scripting, there's 3 major types. Will you just break those down? What are those 3 major types and how do they differ?
The one that we see a lot is a reflected cross-site scripting, right?
Okay.
It's just basically like, hey, we're going to put some code in here, and the code's going to reflect back to the website. So we can use some JavaScript to, just pop up an alert box or something to that effect. Then there's stored cross-site scripting. So when you're
Okay.
looking at stored cross-site scripting, you're looking at something that's like, an easy one is like a blog, right?
Okay.
So if you go and you're typing in on the blog and you're saying, hey, here's my comment on the blog, that blog gets stored, right? So anytime somebody comes to the website, they're going to see your comment. So within that field, we can put some JavaScript or, to say, hey, anytime somebody comes to this website, they're going to see this JavaScript come up on their screen, right? So
Okay.
that's a stored because it's stored within the blog comment itself.
Okay.
And then there's DOM-based cross-site scripting. DOM-based, it's not something that necessarily changes the website itself. We don't really see it a lot, so it's basically, it deals with it's just down in the bottom of the code. We use some developer tools to check for DOM-based cross-site scripting, but the two that you usually see are like a reflected and a stored. So.
And the DOM-based one, that's one of the harder ones usually to detect.
It's
right?
harder to detect.
Okay.
And it doesn't necessarily, it shows a vulnerability, and a lot of the times that vulnerability is within how the code is written.
Sure.
And how it's pulling that data, right? So you're not going to necessarily see that one a lot.
So let's just talk about some of the problems that this could present. And we'll go back to your example of maybe me going into a blog. My favorite blogger has a fabulous post on maybe like a chocolate chip cookies recipe.
Okay.
I comment saying this is so good. I actually doubled the chocolate chips I added. Why is leaving a comment there, or how can that suddenly be under an attack?
So the way that it works is the code that let's look at the code that I put into the website or
Okay.
into my comment that I leave, right? It's going to create depending on the code that I use, it's going to create, I can create a redirect, right? So if I redirect you every time you come to my blog
Yep.
and you click on my blog and it opens up my page and I have a JavaScript-based cross-site scripting in there,
Yep.
it could redirect you to a malicious page to say, hey, log in with your credentials here before you can leave this blog, before you
Sure.
leave a comment, right? So now I have your credentials to the website because the cross-site scripting asked you to redirect to a certain page, or
Right.
so I can start to use like malicious redirects to other websites that I control, and that's where it leaves you vulnerable to, think of it like a phishing, so we're using that JavaScript to phish credentials or get things out of you that weren't necessarily your intentions.
Is that why it's so important? Like a lot of the times I think about using like an app for banking or something on my phone where it might send me a reminder saying, hey, just a quick heads up, this bank is never going to ask for your information
For sure.
via an email, right?
For sure, yeah.
That's
yeah.
one of the measures.
Never expose it. Yeah, we're never going to do that. Anytime there's a redirect or you
Yeah.
go someplace that's like not in the norm. So if you're just trying to leave a blog comment on cookies, why do I need to log in to do that, right? So,
Okay.
you always got to be suspect of
Yeah.
something asking you for something that's not necessarily what you intended it to do.
Yeah, I want to hear more about your experience with cross-site scripting. Can you walk us through maybe a challenging exploit that you went through, how you identified it, how you
Sure.
fixed it, what happened?
So yeah, just recently we found a cross-site scripting on a client pen test, and the reason that it was different was not necessarily the cross-site scripting. The client didn't own the product.
Oh, okay.
Right, so the client was using the product that was within their environment, so they were technically vulnerable, right, to the
Okay.
cross-site scripting. But since they didn't own the product, we had to get a hold of the vendor of the product and say, hey, you have this product out there. We have found these 3 instances of cross-site scripting within your product.
Is this product, was this only used with the client, or where?
Oh no,
this has been widespread.
This is widespread. This
Okay.
is, I mean, like when you look at their GitHub,
Yep.
they have, if you know what starring a project means, they have
Sure.
over 5,000 stars on this project.
Wow.
So it's a pretty well-known product, but they had vulnerabilities within the product, and our client was using that product. We found a vulnerability, so then we had to get with the vendor to say, hey, you have a vulnerability. Here's where it is. Show them what we did to do to find the vulnerability.
Yep.
And they have to produce. They will produce a patch for that vulnerability, because it's not just our client that's vulnerable. It's everybody using the product.
It's all of their clients.
Right.
who
Everybody
are
that bought the
vulnerable.
product is vulnerable to it.
So why did that even happen in the first place, though? Like, why was there an area where an attacker could?
I mean, it gets down to the product not being tested. A lot of developers will develop a product for one particular reason, and then they're only focused on the reason for that product being developed, not how somebody else may use this maliciously.
Okay.
Right? So that's why, so they didn't have the product tested. I know there's over 20 versions of it that have been out since I looked last, so I'm pretty sure all versions prior to the one where we found it have been vulnerable. Just nobody's ever tested it, right? So that's where you get into like bug bounty programs, but you know, this product just had never been tested.
How do you communicate that with the client and with the vendor?
Right, so that's the tricky part, right? Because now when you're talking to the client's like, well, this is not my product. Why am I have to get this vulnerability? I was like, yeah, I mean, you're still vulnerable because it's the vendor's vulnerability, but you're still susceptible to the vulnerability as well, and all your data that could potentially be messed with. So you want to have this vulnerability identified. So it's kind of a tightrope that you walk. But once we let them know that we're going to reach out to the vendor and say, hey, vendor, you need to get this fixed. This is what we have found. They're kind of like, all right, they were all up to date on their versions, so they were using the most current software, most current everything.
Wow.
The vulnerability had just not been reported. So
is that a simple fix for them to create just like a little patch?
It should be for cross-site scripting. It should be a pretty easy fix for the vendor. So I know I reported it, and there's already a patch out there.
So that's one great example of being able to identify it and get it fixed. Tell us maybe some prevention strategies that people can be or should be using.
A lot of it is dealing with the developer of the application, right? So, and we kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, was the name, right? So if you're going to put your name into the field, why do you have to have so many characters for the name field?
Okay.
Right? So that's one thing. Or don't allow a certain backtick or a certain character to be used, right? So you, as a developer on the product, they can omit those, not allow that to happen.
I think that's so interesting, because I think about so many times when I've been, popping in my email to, be on a newsletter, an example.
Right.
And they don't even allow you to submit until you use the @ or at the .com. And even if I've put in, an error somewhere in my email, a lot of the times it just doesn't register. So that's all been a safety measure.
Those are all controls that have been put in place to only allow you to put that information. So if I went to go try to put another character in there, it would probably error out and say that character is not allowed.
Yeah.
So that's really what the developers have to do.
So when the developers are working on something like this, is that a collaborative effort, or do these developers often get siloed? Because I think that's sometimes where the mistakes can happen when it's just one person working on their own.
And I think a lot of it is the mind frame of they're not going to use my product this way. My product is only being used this way.
I see.
Right? So that's where, as a pen tester, I'm going to use it. I'm going to try to break it. That's what I want to do. I'm going to use it my way, right? To see if I can get out of the way that you intended us to use it. So when you're looking at a coder and a developer, they got to get into that security mind frame of what are all aspects of somebody to use this maliciously, right? So,
I would love to know, especially from your perspective, because just 6 years ago, you were interning and now you've kind of transitioned into this senior pen testing role. How do you continue to stay on top of the latest and greatest maybe software to be able to test?
since I've gotten my degree, I have not stopped going to school.
You're a forever student.
It's a forever student. And if you do stop, right, you're
Yeah.
going to fall behind because with cybersecurity, it's always changing.
Right.
So techniques change, new techniques come about, right? So with the cross-site scripting, I can throw just a random payload in there, and you may have made a control for that, right? Say, okay, we're not going to allow these characters. Okay, so what if I turn around and then I encode that character to make it look like something else? And then when I send the payload off, your database catches it, turns it back into the right characters, and now we have cross-site scripting. So I can encode stuff. So those are there are techniques to bypass the controls that you put in there, and that's that we go and test for all of that. So we want to make sure there's no way around it. If there is a way around it, we want to report it and let you know. So
what have you seen as the biggest change in maybe either your practices or maybe it's some of the prevention strategies that you've seen other people use now?
So, it's just ever evolving, right? Like, it feels like once a mitigation strategy has happened, there's always, a week later, somebody's always developed something else to get by that, right? So it's like this cat and mouse game that we're always playing. The blue team is going to do one thing, and then the red team is going to do something else. So that's kind of the back and forth, the cat and mouse game that we play.
Brian, I always want to invite everybody who is listening, if you guys do have questions for Brian as we're talking about cross-site scripting or other topics that you want covered, please go online to kirkpatrickprice.com/podcast. We can either connect you or maybe we'll have Brian back on the podcast to break that down. But before we go here, is there anything else that you want to add in or maybe leave with somebody who's considering diving more into the world of pen testing?
Yeah, if you were looking at getting into pen testing, again, it's not the thing, the way that it was back in the early 90s, 2000s when it was all crazy hackerish. It's now it's being taken serious, right? So it's a good career to get into. Continue to study, and as long as you stay on top of your game, you'll get into the career. So
just get your black hoodies ready.
That's it. Get your black hoodies. Have your dark circles under your eyes. Wear your sunglasses. Yeah. So.
Awesome. Well, Brian, thank you so much for joining us, my friends. It's always so good to have you here on our Cybersecurity podcast. My name's Allie Krings, and I can't wait to chat with you again soon. When you work with a Kirkpatrick Price cybersecurity auditor, you work with someone who's been in your shoes. Let's see what the next expert is ready to share to support you in your cybersecurity mission.
Hello, I am Janelle Russell, and I am a Senior Information Security Auditor at Kirkpatrick Price, and I would like to talk to you about application security development. Many years ago, when I first got into information security, I was actually working as a database administrator, and I had tons of unchecked access to personal health information and PII, and thought there was a problem with that. And so I got into information security. And as we know, databases are often the back end or the backside of our applications. And a lot of times our applications are the primary entry point for attackers to exploit vulnerabilities, to gain unauthorized access to our systems and sensitive data. And so one of the ways I like to stay up to date on security topics around application development is to turn to good old YouTube. I like free. And so there are all kinds of videos, whether it's talking about different coding languages and how to code securely, or how to secure your containers in AWS properly. I turn to YouTube.
Today's episode highlights the need for penetration testing to achieve our challenging compliance goals. An ethical hacker can put your defenses through an exercise to find problems before the attackers do. Are you ready to join a community of 10,000 people who are working together to elevate the standards for cybersecurity and compliance? It's free to sign up at kirkpatrickprice.com/podcast or check the show notes and achieve greater levels of assurance today. Thanks for joining us on our cybersecurity mission.